What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here. Hope you guys are having a good day. And in today's live video, we're going to be talking about Google versus the world. Actually, no, it's not quite that extreme. It's Google versus the world publishers, though. If you guys haven't been following what's going on in Australia, well, we're going to try and get you up to speed today. And I'd love to get your opinion on whether you think that the Australian government's at fault here or whether Google's at fault. And so this has actually been an issue for a while. But today we're specifically going to be talking about, in this article, how did this battle begin? Which countries are waging this war against Google, and what's happening in Australia specifically, and will Canada join the battle on Australia's side? So the battleground here is that major news publications around the world have been angry with Google and Facebook. Well, this has actually been going on for years now. And the publication's point of view is that Google News in particular has been brandishing their articles on Google's News tab. By doing this, Google is enjoying all of the ad revenue that comes with it without doing any of the real work or journalism themselves. And so from Google's point of view, they are the most used search engine they're the most used search engine and offer their services around the world for free and hold over 90% of the market share for search engines, depending on the country. In other words, they have the upper hand and can afford to anger some news publications. And so it's often their way or the highway. And so some of these large publications' profits are dwindling. This is something that's been occurring for a while in the news industry and are on the verge of seeing their, tried and true business models become completely obsolete. So they want to save their skin and save the population's ability to stay informed. And they're arguing that Google needs to pay them in order to access their information. So in 2014, Spain actually passed a law that would require Google to pay for news snippets from specific major publishers. Well, it arguably didn't go that well for Spain. So Google decided to cut off Google News from the country, although search functions remained available. Further, consumers could always just type in the name of their favorite news website into the address bar, but, who does that anymore? And apparently there was little change in traffic to those mainstream publications. So although Google won the battle, the media outlets got the traffic and revenue back on their sites. And then in Germany, Google won the battle and the war as publishers signed agreements to give their news snippets to Google for free. In France, 300 French publishers battled Google and won after the company signed an agreement to pay the publishers for content. This agreement was only ratified after a watchdog in France, the FCA, rejected Google's attempt to avoid payment, reasoning that this lack of payment is unfair and damaging to the press sector. They also argued that it was likely to constitute an abuse of dominant market position. Google decided to appeal the decision, but eventually lost and was forced to negotiate with the publishers. An agreement was reached to compensate certified publishers. So the exact terms of this agreement have not been made public yet, although the payments are based on factors like site traffic and the number of daily posts. The news likely stings for Germany and Spain, who may be eager to get a better deal for themselves, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But let's talk about specifically what's going on in Australia right now. So Australia is attempting to put a new code into law requiring a similar payment situation for its publishers. So from Google's point of view, the issue is with the proposed code is that the individual licensing agreements are less straightforward than the ones in France. Google would have less control over pricing in Australia because if Google has a specific news source can't agree on pricing, it would be up to the arbitration panel to make a binding decision on the payment. So there's an arbitration panel involved with this new law that they're looking at passing. And so from Google's point of view, it's unfair due to the possible bias of the arbitrator. And furthermore, Google doesn't want to be at the mercy of an arbitrator in general. It doesn't make for a great business practice. So again, Google holds such a vast market share that they can afford to leave Australia, which is exactly what they've threatened to do. So Google says it can pull its search engine and Facebook news capabilities, making links from Australian major publications impossible to share from Australia. And so there is a number of things to unpack here based upon these threats, and we're going to try and cover them in a brief and concise manner. So if computer and phone users in Australia were to try to access Google search, they'd be directed to a normal Google landing page with no search function available. Could you imagine living in a world without Google? For most of us, that'd be like wild. That would literally be like, yeah, it's been years since I used another search engine other than Google. So I know like DuckDuckGo and a few others, but honestly, I actually default to Google. If you guys have alternatives that you love, let us know in the comment section because I do want this to be a two-way. I'd love you to tell me what search engine should I be using rather than Google. So again, then they could, when we're looking at these individuals that aren't able to use that Google search function, they could use modern technology such as a VPN service to circumnavigate the restrictions. And so what's interesting here is one thought exercise is what if all the world governments decide to gang up on Google But then Google just decided to take their ball and only play in one country. All of a sudden, that country's like demand for VPN portals just like skyrockets because now everyone wants to be based out of insert random country here, Antarctica. I know that's not a country. Calm down, comment section. But anyways, Google has already been experimenting with removing some of the primary news sources from Australian search results. Around 1% of search results or search users are seeing changes to their pages, which amounts to around 160,000 people a day. So people could miss out on important breaking news, although again, they could simply type the name of their trusted news source website into the address bar. So it's not like literally Google's barring you from going and getting this news. It's just they're trying to make it more convenient, and the news publishers don't like that convenience because they see that cutting into their advertising profits because it reduces the number of visitors to their website. So Australian Prime Minister spoke to Microsoft's chief executive and confirmed that Bing could replace Google adequately if necessary. Imagine that. No plans by the Australian government to make Bing or other small search engines pay for the links to Australian news source. So like literally the plan is just let's boot stomp Google. It seems a little bit arbitrary at this point, doesn't it? But anyways, Google is confident that there is a workable path forward between Australia and the tech giant. They argue that they simply need to be able to make some tweaks to the new code to work for both sides, like they did in, say, France. So Canada is looking forward to introducing new legislation of its own that would govern how media outlets negotiate with companies such as Google. So Canada's main concern is to make sure that mainstream news coverage is viable because of the value it provides to Canadians. Now, I think one argument here immediately for me is like, don't we already pay for CBC News? Why would we have to pay for then have to pay other news publishers when we essentially already set up CBC? It seems like you're trying to do a lot of things at once here, Canadian government. As of right now, Canadian officials are planning to speak to Australian and French officials later this month to learn from their experiences and make a plan for our country. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. This is actually a pretty complicated situation, and obviously I can't cover all the nuances or finesse in one little YouTube live video, but I would love to get your opinions, your perspectives, and let me know, are you working in journalism? Have you worked in journalism in the past? Do you have friends or family? What's their opinion and perspective as boots on the ground? Because we're constantly fascinated to understand where you guys are coming from with your perspective as well. So I don't just want to hear your opinion. I want to hear the context behind your opinion as well. Let me know in that comment section. Really appreciate Joseph Hunt, who's in the comment section here. See you constantly commenting on the YouTube video, so appreciate it. And just want to encourage everyone that's watching this video, whether it's live or recorded, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new to my channel. A reminder, this is an experimentation. We are looking for your feedback. We really do appreciate it. What's up, Ian Jack? Appreciate the comment as well. And again, if you guys want to see this continue, it's simple as smashing the like button, subscribing, sharing it on social media, things of that nature. I'd love to continue to do this, but only if you're getting value, because otherwise, what's the point? Appreciate you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be coming with 2 more live news videos that hopefully with some news that you can use. Thanks, guys.